Welcome to Pivot and Passion. I'm your host, Stephanie Cully, and I'm here to help you follow your true purpose. My goal is to help you build unshakable confidence and showcase your strengths. Each episode is filled with inspiration and tips to help you in your career and personal life. So grab your morning cup of coffee or your evening tea and let's dive in. Today, we're talking about how to go from stuck to unstoppable. That's right. We're talking about how to move free from a funk. Let's face it, we all go through moments in our life where we're feeling stuck. This could be in our career, this could be in our life, and maybe if you're a job seeker who's listening, you could be feeling stuck, whether that's in your life, whether that's personal things that are going on in your career, or even as a job seeker, you may be struggling to actually land the job. So you're just getting into that funk. So today I'm going over some tips on how to get out of a funk and how to get more motivation in your life. Now, I want to be clear. This episode is talking specifically about if you're in a funk. If you're in something that's more of a deep depression, this episode is not for you. For that would require more medical advice. So I want to go through and really define what is a funk so we can get into the details of this topic. So I looked up the definition, and the definition of a funk is being in a state of low spirits or lack of motivation. It describes a period where someone feels stuck or unable to find enthusiasm or energy for activities that they normally enjoy. And just speaking from personal experience, this is something that I experience from time to time. And as we get into the tips, you'll kind of see why it is that I say that funks happen at certain periods in your life, and certain things I feel can actually trigger them. So we can talk about some of those triggers to try to prevent them, or at least move through a funk more quickly where possible. So the first tip that I have for you on moving from stuck to unstoppable or getting out of your funk is that you have to accept the feeling and acknowledge what's going on. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but when you're trying to fight it, then sometimes it just makes it a lot harder. Just facing reality, we can't always be happy 100% of the time. And I think if you take some of the pressure off from yourself of, I have to feel this certain way, I have to feel happy. Why am I in a funk? Why do I feel this way? It puts so much pressure on you. And speaking from experience, something that I experience from time to time is anxiety. And I feel like anxiety is very similar when we talk about this tip as we compare it to being in a funk. So for me, sometimes I start feeling anxious about something. Let's say I have an upcoming talk that's happening or something that's really important going on in my life. And then I start to dwell on it and I start to think, wow, I'm really anxious. And then I start to get anxious about being anxious. So I'm really just tormenting myself more than once when really I could just be allowing the feeling to come. Of course, it's uncomfortable, but when you acknowledge the fact that if you're in a funk or if you're feeling anxious, eventually this will pass. It will take some of the pressure off for you, and it will make it so that it relieves the pressure and relieves some of the feelings even sooner. So, what are some of the ways that you can accept or acknowledge the feelings? Really just acknowledging that if this has happened in the past, when are times that this has come up before and then it's passed for you? I think just having real life proof of this happening makes it easier to say, yep, okay, this happened maybe 3 months ago. I was feeling a little bit in a funk, feeling unmotivated, and then eventually this feeling passed. So that can give you a little bit of relief. Another thing that you can do too, this may be difficult or may feel difficult for some people, but it's something that I implemented recently, was trying to do more meditation. So when you're meditating, you're in the present moment. And I want you to realize that when I say meditating, again, you don't want to judge yourself, because I think that's where I found it really difficult to meditate was, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about what's going on in my day, or I'm thinking about the future. No, the whole purpose of meditating is not like to sit there and judge yourself about the feelings or the thoughts that you have. It's really just to observe it and to just watch it pass by. For me, I actually do a lot better with meditation if it's guided meditation. Sometimes I try to give myself, even if you give yourself 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes to meditate, you don't have to sit there for an hour and try to meditate, but it just puts you in more of the present moment and it allows you to accept your feelings. So that will help you with accepting the fact that you're in a funk and that it will eventually pass. So just keep in mind, if you're in a funk, there's nothing wrong with you. It happens to the best of us, and eventually it will pass. The next thing that I do if I'm in a funk, tip number 2, is assessing your physical, emotional, and any other types of needs. So think about it. If you're feeling really frustrated or something's going on and you just don't feel yourself, sometimes we have to take a step back and look at what may seem really obvious. So sometimes I'll have to look at myself, take a look in the mirror and say, Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I tired? Do I have thoughts floating around in my head, like negative thoughts? Maybe there's some type of talk that's going on in my head about what I can or cannot do. Have I taken a break recently? If not, then sometimes I start to feel a little bit agitated. And if you do this for long enough, you can really get into a funk if you're not evaluating your physical and your emotional needs. So this one's pretty self-explanatory, especially on the physical side of things, but I think on the mental side of things, I could give you some additional tips to help out with this one. So on the physical side of things, obviously, if you're feeling hungry, make sure that you're taking a break, make sure that you're eating frequently. So for me, I know some people like to eat 3 meals a day. For me, I make sure that I'm eating probably 5, maybe 6 times a day. So small snacks throughout the day, just to keep your blood sugar levels going. And then the other thing, this is something that will really mess me up from a physical standpoint, is if I'm not getting proper sleep. I am just not the same person when I'm not getting, let's say, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Honestly, like 8 hours is my optimal time period. So think about the last day. How many hours of sleep have you had? What have you been, and even the things that are going into your body. Are you eating healthy? Are you eating junk food? Even just making some tweaks to make sure that you're eating more protein instead of eating a bunch of unsaturated fat or saturated fats or sweets, that can really have an impact on how you're feeling. Now, as we get into the mental side of things, what I want you to really force yourself to do is think about what are the thoughts that are going through your mind. And if you're not quite sure, you can go back to the meditation part of things and you can say to yourself, what are the thoughts that are floating around? Do I have negative self-talk that's going on? For me, sometimes that's happening. Maybe I have something that forces me to step out of my comfort zone. Let's take an example of last week. I did what they call an open space where I go up and I present a topic and then I speak in front of people and facilitate it. I can tell you just, your mind goes to places that you don't even realize that it's going to go. Is I start having these doubts. Can I do this? I've never been in front of this group of people before. Will they judge me? And then you have to bring yourself back down. And it's okay to observe that you're having these thoughts. But if you can try to reframe it in a way that makes you feel a little bit better, that can definitely help you with your funk. So for me, instead of thinking things like, are people going to judge me? Am I going to do a good job? I would think something like, well, I'm going to do my best. I've been in situations like this before where I facilitated, and all I can do is my best. And if this helps just one person, then I'll be happy. Tip number 3 is prioritizing. And this is specifically prioritizing your well being. I think we get so overwhelmed with the different things that we have going on in our lives, whether that's taking care of our kids or making sure that we spend time with our significant other, making sure that we're getting our work done, our chores, and anything else, maybe keeping up around the house. We have so many things going on that sometimes we forget to prioritize ourselves and our well being. I know that I personally can speak to this. There have been so many times where I get swept up in all of the things that I need to do, whether it's taking care of my children or maybe running something in my business, that what happens, time passes by and I haven't even eaten lunch. So no wonder I'm starting to feel a little bit irritable. Another thing that's really important to me is physical exercise. So even if that just means at a minimum that I'm going for a 20 or a 30-minute walk per day, I can feel a significant difference if I'm not prioritizing my well-being and prioritizing either getting to the gym or going for a walk outside. And I think for you, you just have to assess what are the things that are really important to you? What are the things related to your well being that you have to prioritize? We know just for most people, you need to prioritize sleep. I know some people can function on 4 hours of sleep, but many of us are probably closer to the 8 hour mark. So making sure that you're making that a priority, drinking water throughout the day. I would say a lot of people, they really need that physical part of things. So if you're not getting any exercise, you start to feel a little bit stagnant. And think about it too. If you're feeling like you're in a funk or you're feeling anxious, whatever negative feeling is going on, by getting outside and exercising, you're releasing those endorphins and it's really helping you to get back into a better state of mind. Next up is setting small, manageable goals. Again, we get very overwhelmed with all of the things that we have going on. We talked about how do we prioritize ourselves, even if that means going for a 10, 15-minute walk. But what about setting manageable tasks or goals that are related to the things that we're trying to achieve? So for me, the mistake that I run into sometimes, and I have to just evaluate what I'm doing when I get into a funk, is I set so many goals for myself. And if I'm not keeping track of it with, let's say, every day writing down my goals and setting these are the top 3 priorities that I want to get done, Sometimes you get so overwhelmed that you're just like, I don't want to do anything. So think about it. How are some ways that you can break down your goals into more manageable chunks? If you're doing something like, let's say I'm writing a book, I'm releasing my book this week. And I really started to overwhelm myself a little bit because I started this back in January and I thought to myself, like, this is just an ebook that I'm going to put together. It's not really a big deal. And this turned into a 100-page workbook for people. And when you look at it and you're just like, I'm going to get this done within 2 months. And then realistically, you start to think about how do I set this into more manageable tasks? You realize, like, let's try to spread this out a little bit. Let's give ourselves realistic goals throughout the week, throughout the day. So for me, what I ended up doing was I broke it down into chapters. And I said to myself that I want to finish one chapter per week. So if you think about it, that would have taken me about 3 months to get done with 12 chapters. But things come up. So you also have to think about realistically, are you going to be able to do X number of pages every single day? I think you have to set realistic goals so that you're pushing yourself, but you also don't want to push yourself over the edge that you get to the point where you're burnt out and you don't want to do anything at all. So let's talk about this. If you're someone who's a job seeker and you have a goal that you want to transition into a new role, and let's say it's a totally different role than what you've done in the past, you may want to set realistic goals of, let's say, 6 months to a year. Honestly, the current job market, if you're looking to transition and you don't already have those skills, you need to give yourself some grace to be able to build the skills up, to be able to build up your resume, make those connections, and actually get the interviews to get the job. So for you, setting manageable goals instead of saying, I'm going to apply to 50 roles this week may look something more like, I'm going to really narrow down 5 companies or 5 job postings that I see listed out here and apply to those. And then on top of it, the most important things that I'm going to do are apply. And then I'm going to reach out to the recruiter or the hiring manager for each of these roles. Those are small and more manageable chunks of work that you can do. And when you take it from, I'm going to apply to 50 jobs this week and just that overwhelm, you really narrow it down so it's a lot easier and helps take you out of that funk or takes you out of that state of anxiety about how am I going to apply to so many roles this week. And along the lines with setting those manageable goals is I want you to celebrate those goals. Celebrate even the smallest wins. Even if you had a phone screening and you're like, well, I didn't reach my goal of actually landing the job. That's still great news. Given the current job market, it's hard to even get a phone screening these days. So you don't have to do anything crazy. If you want to, you can reward yourself. Maybe you go out and you buy yourself your favorite cup of coffee or some type of lunch, but you could do even smaller celebrations. For instance, one of the things that I like to do is if I have a new client that I just signed, then I'll go out, I'll grab a cup of coffee, and mainly it's going for a walk around my favorite little shopping center. So it's getting out of my, normal routine and just walking around. So whatever that is for you, whether that's going for a walk, grabbing a nice cup of coffee, or maybe even just sitting inside your house and reading your favorite book, it's really whatever makes you happiest. And last but not least is incorporating positive activities that you enjoy into your life. Again, I'm going to go back to the overwhelm. When we're so overwhelmed, we're not prioritizing ourselves, and we're especially not prioritizing these fun little things that we could be doing throughout the day. If you really want to get out of the funk, then sometimes getting out of the routine is something that can help you. And I encourage you to look at activities that maybe you enjoyed when you were younger, whether that's when you were a little kid, or maybe even something that you were doing before or around the time that you started working that you just drifted away from. I know, especially as parents, we get into these activities that we really enjoy before we have kids. And then all of a sudden, the focus is all around running a family, making sure that the house is tidy. And we forget about the fact that we love to go for a bike ride or we love to do some crocheting or whatever the case may be. So, what are those activities that you really enjoy doing, and how can you incorporate them into your daily life? I'm not saying to go out and try to do 20 activities that you enjoy. All I'm saying is that you should identify something that really takes you out of your normal zone and something that may even get you into a state of flow. So, when I say state of flow, you just totally forget everything else that you're doing. And it's because you're so wrapped up in that activity or you're enjoying that activity so much. And I can almost guarantee you this is going to help get you out of your funk really quickly. And I'll give you an example of something for myself. When I was younger, I really enjoyed art. I enjoyed painting and drawing. And as I've gotten older, I've really gotten away from that. So I had a moment, I would say about a month ago, where I really felt like I was in a funk, just felt like everything just feels the same. I feel really unmotivated. And I did some of these other tips that we talked about, but I also incorporated positive activities. So I went back to what are some things that I can do from my childhood that I really enjoyed? Should I draw? Should I use one of the adult coloring books? What's something that would make me happy? I didn't really feel like I wanted to draw images and things of that nature, but I was looking around the store and I found that there was a paint by numbers and it was perfect. So I decided, and again, you don't have to purchase anything, but just for me in this moment, I really thought just a simple paint by numbers is something that will take me out of my funk, take me out of my comfort zone because it's something that I haven't done in a while. And sure enough, I bought this and then I would spend a little bit of time each night doing this paint by numbers. And it was really therapeutic. So I encourage you to do the same, whether that's finding an activity that you did when you were younger, or maybe you even want to try an activity that you've never done before. So let's go ahead and recap what we talked about today. The first activity was you want to make sure that you accept the feelings that you have and accept that you're feeling in a funk. Know that there's nothing wrong with you, and eventually this will pass. The second thing is you want to assess your physical and your emotional needs to see what's going on and make sure that you're able to move through some of these feelings that you're having. If you're feeling hungry, thirsty, or you're having some negative self talk, then you really want to address that first. The next thing is prioritizing your well being. Make sure that you're making a to do list and you're prioritizing yourself and things that make you happy. The fourth tip was setting manageable goals, breaking things down into a to-do list and making it as easy as possible. That way you're able to celebrate those wins, even if it's a small thing that you accomplish. And lastly is incorporating those positive activities that you enjoy into your life. It could be something like painting, fishing, reading a book, whatever it is that you really enjoy and find yourself in a state of flow in. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you like this episode, then you'll love my Get Hired book. You can access the ebook version now by going to the link in my show notes. I talk about everything from finding fulfillment to how to get interviews lined up and how to nail the interview. It covers everything you need to know about how to get hired. I also offer one-on-one coaching, so if you need a coach, let's have a quick chat to discuss how I can help you achieve your career goals. Until next time, hope you have a great day.